This is a record of our trip to Tunisia, an exploration of the first 5 years of the Fatimid Empire. Like many Canadians, we were snowbirds in Tunisia for 5 weeks. I would suggest a good tourist time frame would be a week to 10 days. There is a lot more to see than just the Fatimid Empire, starting from the history of the Phoenicians, the Greeks and the Romans, the French, Spanish, Ottoman occupation, enjoy the Sahara Desert, and experience the movie Star Wars. The book Eyewitness Guide to Tunisia is an excellent guidebook, by the way. My goal for this video is to focus on the first 5 years of the glorious Fatimid Empire. Where is Tunisia? Tunisia is located in North Africa, the middle of the Mediterranean. Across the Mediterranean Sea from Tunisia is Italy. The large island below Italy, indicated by the green arrow, is Cyprus. The red pointer on the tiny island, easily seen from Tunisian shores, is Malta. Tunisia ranges from the Mediterranean Sea to the Sahara Desert. At the top of the screen is Carthage, now Tunis, the capital. Just off the center of the screen are Sousse and Monastir. Mahydia is the bottom arrow of the screen. We arrived in Tunis by plane and spent 2 days in Tunis. We hired a car with a driver and an English-speaking guide and toured Tunisia for 7 days. Tunisia has Mediterranean towns with beautiful beaches, oranges and tangerines growing. As you move inwards, as in Cairo, you find olives, dates and pomegranates. And further south is the Sahara Desert. Just a few minutes' drive north of Tunis is the beautiful old city of Carthage. You are looking at a huge Roman ancient baths in Carthage. I'm going to read to you from the student handbook. The Fatimid Imam al-Mansur made several visits to ancient sites. On one visit, he was particularly intrigued by the ruins of the ancient city of Carthage. His son, the future Imam al-Mu'izz, provides us with a vivid account of his curiosity. I quote, "When Imam al-Mansur came to the area of Al-Tunis, he camped at the ruins of Carthage, which are truly among the most astonishing buildings of the ancients, and he spent several days there. One morning, when I entered his tent, he said, 'I will tell you about the marvels of these buildings. I cannot get them out of my mind. So that I say to myself, if only I knew who built them. Was it one single man, or did a number of men follow one another? And how did the builder ever complete it with these enormous dimensions? And I say to myself, if the builder was only a single king, how could he make the city so spacious? Whereas the lifespan of a man is not long enough for that. But if one king followed another, then how did they all agree on this place? Whereas men, and kings especially, have seldom agreed where cities are to be put." We in the West know Hannibal as Anthony Hopkins, including his horror thriller Silence of the Lambs. And we know Alexander the Great as the hero, But it was Alexander the Great who captured and ruined the Persian Empire in 330 BC. The destruction of the Carthaginian Empire started with Alexander the Great's capture of the city of Tyre. At the end of the Third Punic War in 146 BC, the Roman general Scipio besieged Carthage for 3 years until it fell. After sacking the city, the Romans burnt it to the ground, leaving not one stone on top of another, completely destroying what is today Algeria and Tunisia. This is a 5-dinar Tunisian bill celebrating Hannibal the Great for all his contributions to Tunisia. It is very important to note who is writing history, the Tunisians or the Romans. Here is the Fatimid Empire at its peak. It stretched from today's Algeria to Medina and Mecca. The start of the Fatimid Empire was in 910, and in the year 973 CE, Imam Moyes moved to Cairo, Al-Qahira, and Moysia, the city of Al-Moyes. Today, local markets called souks are famous all over Tunisia. One of the famous goods taken home by crusaders was the black soap made of olive oil and charcoal, available even today at souk markets. To avoid capture and prosecutions by the Abbasids, the Ismaili Imam al-Mehdi left Salamia, Syria, in 902. After a brief stay in Palestine, Egypt, he arrived disguised as a merchant and was by 905 living in Silij Massa, today's Risani, in southeastern Morocco. Dai Abdullah al-Shi had conquered today's eastern Algeria and Tunisia. The Dai invited Imam Abdullah al-Mehdi, who entered Kairouan on January the 4th, 910, and was immediately proclaimed as Caliph, the ruler of the Fatimid Empire. This is Al-Kairouan, the city where Imam Mahdi first settled. He lived for 6 years in the outskirts of Al-Kairouan, Rakada. In this view, you can see the Grand Mosque of Al-Kairouan. Al-Kairouan is one of the 4th holiest cities in the Muslim world. The Ismaili Dai and historian Al-Qadi al-Noma was born here in 903. The Grand Mosque of Al-Kairouan today is a Sufi center and the largest mosque in North Africa. Outside the mosque, inside the mosque, close of the mihrab. The mihrab, a large replica of the 10th century Fatimid Blue Quran outside the Al-Kairouan Mosque. The Aga Khan Museum in Toronto, Canada, has a few of the original pages of the Blue Quran. A Quran written on parchment dyed in indigo blue, with ink made of gold. The museum in Rakada, in Al-Kairouan, has 67 pages of the Blue Quran. An Ismaili historian, Dai Al-Qadi Noma, wrote, on Friday, 7th January 910, Dai Abu Abdullah al-Shi walked in front of the Imam on a horse, saying, and I quote, "This is my Mawla and your Mawla, O Mu'min. He is my Lord and your Lord, the guardian of your destiny, your guide in the straight path, your awaited Mehdi, whose glad tidings I had announced. God the mighty, the glorious, has caused him to triumph, just as he had promised. End of quote. The Grand Al-Qayrawan Mosque was built with recycled stones and columns, as the Roman writings can be seen in this picture. Al-Mansuriyah today is the south part of the city of Al-Qayrawan. Al-Mansuriyah was built by Imam al-Mansur in 946. These are Roman-looking water ducts built by Imam Mansur. Water was brought from mountains 35 kilometers away. Imam al-Mansur extended these water cisterns. It was one of the very first water treatment centers in the world. There are 3 round basins. The first is for settling large objects. The second, fine sedimentary tank. And the third, for clean water storage. Unfortunately, nothing remains of the buildings of Al-Mansuriyah. All destroyed, and the building materials reused for building city houses, etc. The National Museum of Islamic Art has many artifacts at Al-Mansuriyah. While in Al-Qayrawan, Imam Mehdi built a palace city, Al-Mahdyya. 1,000 years ago, trade was by ships. There were no trains or aeroplanes. Notice the location of Al-Mahdyya. Ships traveling from Syria and Egypt would have a convenient stop in what is today Tunisia to get water and food supplies. With the encouragement of the Imam, Al-Mahdyya was an excellent center for trade, and the Fatimid Empire soon became very rich. It was an experience, a historical experience for me. We are looking at a map of the palace city of Imam Mehdi. The view of the palace city Al-Mahdyya from the hotel room where we stayed for a month. The center of Al-Mahdyya. It is estimated there are 1,000 family houses in the palace city, a gated community. Imam al-Mehdi arrived in Raqqada from southeastern Morocco in January 910. 6 years later, May 916, Al-Mahdyya was completed as a palace city, surrounded by water on 3 sides. The blue pointer shows you the wall that surrounds the palace city. It was what we call a gated city, walls all around. In these pictures, you can see the remains of the walls, and in this one, the white Muslim graves. The walls are being beaten up by the rising sea. Bits of wall. These walls are 1,100 years old. Will they, with climate change and the rising sea level, survive another 100 years? The blue arrow is the gate on the waterfront, which has been restored, as can be seen here. My pictures of the iconic waterfront gate. On the beach of Al-Mahdyya, we found these round balls of plant fiber, Posidonia oceaniaca, or Neptune balls. The damaged leaf sheets from stiff fibers that intertwine into a ball collecting plastic in the process. Nearly 1,500 pieces per kilogram of sea ball. These plastic cleansing Neptune balls are the size of a tennis ball. Notice the moat, a water trench as indicated by the blue arrows. The arrow points at the main gated entrance. It used to have iron gates. There is the main gated entrance. But where is the moat? It has disappeared over the years. In Arabic, the gate is called Barb Skifa al-Kala, the gate of the dark passage. That's me gives you a perspective of the huge size of the gate. The passage is about 44 meters long. There are stalls inside the gate and more stalls. The other side of the gate. Now you can see why it's called the Dark Gate. One floor up at the top. We found a Turkish cannon at the top of the gate. View from the top of the gate, surrounded by the Mediterranean Sea on all three sides, and if you add the moat, surrounded by the sea on all four sides. The white dome is the Grand Mosque of Al-Mahdyya. The Grand Mosque of Al-Mahdyya. The blue arrow indicates the path as we walked towards the Grand Mosque of Al-Mahdyya. We walk past the gate and see mosques in the background. And here is that mosque. 98% of the population is Muslim. The bulk of Tunisians belong to the Maliki school of Sunni Islam and are easily recognized by their square minarets. While the second largest, the Ottomans, are Hanifi school and have the octagonal minarets. Another mosque. There are presently 5 mosques within the walls of the royal city of Al-Mahdyya. Entrance to one of the mosques. The Grand Mosque of Al-Mahdyya, built in the year 916 by Imam Mehdi. The pointer is on the dome of Imam Mehdi's mosque. The white dome is the Grand Mosque. The iconic entrance to the Grand Mosque of Al-Mahdyya. We walked around and noticed the white dome, the other side, the third side, and back to the front. Please, if you recognize the next slide, don't tell your neighbor where it is. 1, 2, 3. And this is the artistic rendition of what? Yes, the Ismaili Center Burnaby in Vancouver. Bruno Freschi said that the Grand Mosque of Al-Mahdyya was his inspiration when he designed the Ismaili Center Burnaby. Traditional Fatimid architecture using current materials and technology expressed in a modern vocabulary. See the white dome and the front gate? Now put them together and you have the Ismaili Center Burnaby. We are now entering the Grand Mosque of Al-Mahdyya. The front side as we enter, to the other side of the entrance, the courtyard, the other side of the courtyard, the third side of the courtyard. Beautiful courtyard arches. Inside the Grand Mosque. A mihrab is a semicircular niche in the wall of a mosque that indicates Qibla, the direction of Kaaba in Mecca. Above the mihrab was Kufi calligraphy, which gives blessings to Imam Mehdi. The white dome we can see from the outside is on the top of the mihrab. Copies of the Quran. People read the Quran whilst waiting for the Jummah congregational prayer. The minbar, from which the Jummah khutbah is given. You will notice that the atmosphere is very casual. In all the mosques in Tunisia, the men are not wearing headgear. A half hour later, the mosque was full with Jummah prayer attendees. A few minutes' walk from the Grand Mosque was the Imam's palace. The palace of the Imam Mehdi over the years has been replaced by a Turkish castle. The bottom arrow shows you a smaller palace, and the top arrow is the site of the Imam's palace. You can see Turkish cannons clearly in this picture. The 16th century Turkish fort stands on the site of the royal palace. There were two palaces, one for Imam Mehdi and the second for the family of the Imam, the next Caliph. Next to the palace was a protected harbor, as can be seen in this photograph. Today the land is surrounded by white graves. The harbor is quite large. You can see fishing boats in the harbor. More fishing boats and people walking on the original wall built over 1,000 years ago. I am sure you recognize this. It's the gate with the long, dark passage. Next to it is the white building with the clock. That is the Al-Mahdyya Museum. It is a tiny museum with very few Fatimid items. Why is that? Why only a few Fatimid artifacts? Either pilfered or at the Museum of Al-Mansuriya, and most of the best pieces have been taken to the Bardo Museum in Tunis. Yet there are some interesting artifacts. Firstly, the Fatimids were in Tunisia for a relatively short period of time, some 60 years. Second, when Imam Moyes left Tunisia for Cairo, he took all the precious things with him. This included a very large library as well as the graves of his ancestors. And third, the Fatimid rule was followed by anti-Fatimid forces, the Hafsida and the Ottomans. Here you see more beautiful ceramic plates. This one looks very much like the one we have at the Aga Khan Museum, Toronto. And here is another Fatimid plate. Coins. The Fatimid coins are bright gold, as they had a very large part of gold in them compared to other gold coins. Roman coins found in sunken ship of the shores of Al-Mahdyya. Copies of the Quran. There is a lot of jewelry. The hand of Fatima is a common talisman that is thought to ward off bad luck. Many Muslims believe that the hand has the power to protect and bestow blessings. Fatima was the daughter of the Prophet. The Fatimid dynasty is the descendant from her. I was told by the guide that the 5 fingers symbolize the 5 pillars of Islam. But for us, Shia, it symbolizes Panj Tan Pak, the family of the Prophet. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak about a topic that I enjoy. Just to set the parameters, this is my interpretation. The presentation, given the time frame, only covers the first 5 years of the glorious Fatimid Empire. Bye.